my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious
It has begun!
The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
It's time for the week's latest news in tech, gaming, movies, TV, and all things geeky. Welcome to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.
Radio SLCC, your online student source. Welcome, everybody, to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. I am, of course, your host, Adam Mickelson, and I hope everybody has had a tremendous week. I myself have... Well, I've tried to have an amazing week, but it's been kind of busy, like things get when you're in college and all that. It's kind of weird like that. And I actually don't know what happened with the radio station there for a second. For some reason, we decided to get ranted at by Janine Garofalo. I don't know what happened there, but that was absolutely hilarious. So once again, welcome everybody to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. So we are right here on the Tech Hour. Hopefully everybody had a good week, and that's good because we have some news to go over. And we're just going to go over the tech news right now. We have a couple of stories that are worth mentioning. First off, we're going to be talking about the head writer of the Uncharted series leaving Naughty Dog. They're actually going to leave the Uncharted series now in the hands of the team that created The Last of Us. And so we'll be getting into that a little bit. The next story that we're going to be talking about in the Technology Hour will be Blizzard is doing their... get everybody back into Diablo because their expansion's coming out in the next month. So they're giving Diablo players an XP boost and a couple of other rewards until March 25th when the expansion Reaper of Souls hits. We'll get into that a little bit. Also, we're going to be getting into Fez because it finally hit PlayStation console or the PSN. So it can be available on the Vita. It can be available on PS3, PS4. We're also going to be talking a little bit of Phil Fish probably because, it's unfortunate that of the events that happened last summer, but we'll probably get into Phil Fish just because, he was a good guy. Unfortunately, things kind of happened the way they did. The other story that we're going to be talking about is, and unfortunately, I think my partner Aldo is going to be a little perturbed at this, especially since he loved the game Thief in the last review that he gave. But there's going to be layoffs over at the studio that created it. So Eidos Montreal is going to be laying off a few people, and we'll get into the reasons on that coming up. So in the meantime, we are going to have to take a quick little break. But after that, I'm going to be joined by a lot of guests this afternoon, or I want to say this afternoon, but it's like morning and afternoon. I'm going to be joined by a lot of people, especially since during the entertainment hour, we've got a lot to talk about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions continues, right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source, and quite a panel we have today. So first of all, let's just start introducing people. First off, we have Aldo Gomez. He is the video game reviewer for The Globe over at SLCC. How are you doing this fine day, Aldo?
Yes. I'm doing pretty good. Just running a little bit behind on everything on life.
I found it a little appropriate because somebody actually told me, who was listening to us live, going, poor Aldo, he just gets picked on these shows. Because we actually had a moment where there was literally... We had you off mic for a while. I'm pointing at you and saying Romney. We're having a bunch of problems there. So,
when I said raccoon?
Yes. In fact, I think the episode of that is just going to be, let's get to some freaking raccoons.
Yeah.
So, we've got lots to talk about with Aldo. And then also we are being joined by a very special guest. For those who follow me on Twitter, you might also be following my YouTube work. And along with having my own YouTube channel, I also do a partner channel with my brother-in-law, Alex, a.k.a. the Shadow Blazer, who actually has his own channel full of anime reviews, and we are being joined by Alex. How are you doing, Mr. Shadow Blazer?
Greetings, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very thrilled.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
doing great.
Yes, you are indeed. Are you the Shadow Blazer today, or are you just Alex?
I can be whatever you want me to be.
That's probably not the best thing to admit on Geek News Reviews and Opinions. That doesn't end up well. All right, so we have a lot of news to get into, and unfortunately some bad news for Aldo, so I am going to want to get his opinion on that. Let's go ahead and get into the first story, which was that the Uncharted leading writer, who has been doing the Uncharted games for quite a while, is leaving Naughty Dog. She has been assigned elsewhere, and instead of her being the head writer of the Uncharted series, it's now going to be going to the pair that created The Last of Us. And apparently she wasn't too happy about this and just left Naughty Dog. So at that point, it is kind of sad as far as I'm concerned, because she's done such a great job with the games that she's been a part of. However, The Last of Us is kind of a different game. So I wonder how this is actually going to affect Uncharted in the future. We do have a PS4 game coming out pretty soon. It's going to be, at least, Sony's advertising the heck out of it. So what do we think, Aldo? Is this the end of the Uncharted series?
Oh, God, no. By no means. If anything, I actually feel it was a badly executed move, but I think it was actually a really good move. Because the Nathan Drake saga, that story was done, it was told, it had its beginning, middle, and end. That's what she and her team of people set out to do, and they did it, and it was fantastic. It was great. And I think moving a new writer onto the Uncharted saga, specifically after they said that Nathan Drake may not return, and I think they teased that he might be coming back, but not as the main character.
Yes, the way I heard it was like he was going to kind of take a Sully role in this kind of thing, where he's going to be shepherding somebody new.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that might actually that might work out. I think, especially if we have the Last of Us writers, who are very capable writers.
Sure.
But definitely a lot more serious tone than Uncharted.
The part that I haven't liked with some of the discussion, and we'll get to your opinion in a second, Alex, even though your Uncharted experience is kind of limited, but the main complaint that I've been seeing, which I don't think is a whole lot warranted, is like, well, The Last of Us was this horror game, and Uncharted is, an adventure game, so do they really have the chops to write this? I don't think that's really even an argument. A writer can write anything good. It doesn't have to be in fixed genres. It's just they may have their own themes that they see for the Uncharted series.
Exactly. So I mean, the biggest change I can foresee, or kind of opinionate on, is that we'll still get that lighthearted comedy from Uncharted. That's kind of its staple. It's very much an Indiana Jones for the modern age type of story and video game. But I feel that if anything, we're probably going to get a slightly more serious protagonist. We might see maybe more realistic danger, more danger that kind of revolves around actual human emotions rather than, climbing or excavating or something. There's probably going to be a deeper layer to it. That's kind of what I see, because that's what Last of Us kind of brought to me. Because, yeah, it was a horror game, but it had such a different feel and kind of emotion to it than any other horror game I've ever really played.
Yeah, and in Uncharted, you didn't really have a discovery element, except in the fact that you walked into a new territory. You were platforming, and then they'd moved to the next cutscene. Not that was bad, but at this point I see it has the potential to add to the franchise. Yeah. So I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Now, Alex, you've had kind of limited experience with the Uncharted series, whereas you've watched me play the first 3 games. Does this affect you at all? I mean, having the main writer leave, or...
I think Aldo makes a good point here. It definitely can take the franchise into a brand new direction with changing of the writers. So did you say she was kind of more forced out, or did she willingly?
It really seems to me in the article like she walked out because she didn't like the idea of bringing these 2 in. So
that is kind of unfortunate when you start losing your core staff that made part of what made you so successful. But at the same time, like any studio, it can be a new beginning, and I hope she finds more success elsewhere. And it is kind of, you're right, interesting to see that these 2 writers who did The Last of Us, which is a very, very mature game, come in and now write this Uncharted series, which is more pop, more Indiana Jones style. But I think you're right. Any good writer can reshape and retool it enough. I don't think we'll see like Uncharted suddenly become The Last of Us part whatever.
Yeah, it's not going to be The Last of Us Uncharted DLC edition. No,
I think you're right. It could very well bring into sort of a slightly more mature, more dangerous storyline.
Could be.
Of course, it could totally go the wrong way and blow up in their face. We'll have to wait and see when the game comes out.
Exactly. And that's the exact point that we need to get to. We don't know what the writers are going to do with Uncharted, so we'll have to wait and see what they do. We'll get something at E3 because Sony is really wanting to get this out there. But in the meantime, unfortunately, guys, we have to take yet another break. We will be back to talk more about the other news of the week. For example, next we're going to be getting into Blizzard trying to get the Diablo players back into the Diablo 3 game. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions continues. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. All right, let's go ahead and keep on going into the news stories of the week. The next one is kind of not really news because, it's Blizzard. They do this kind of thing. But Blizzard has offered the Diablo player base some extra stuff to come back to Diablo before the expansion Reaper of Souls hits on the 25th. So right now they're getting an XP boost, they're getting kind of a gold boost, they're getting a couple of boosts just to try and get people up to max level and doing all the other fun features of the game. And this will all go until the 24th when supposedly when that night Reaper of Souls hits, and then we're all back into this. We're supposedly back in Diablo 3. Now, my take on this is obviously this is Blizzard trying to get people into their game.
Yeah.
Diablo 3 is one of those games that didn't do I don't think did as well as they wanted, especially as far as reception went. A lot of people had criticisms for it, but I do know that a lot of the more hardcore have acknowledged that they are excited for the expansion because it is going to start implementing some of the functions that they wanted. But is this enough to bring them in 25 days, or, well, at this point, it's March 6th, so, 19 days early? I don't know if it is actually enough. What do you think, Aldo?
It just might, because, first of all, what you're doing, when you present all these things, you have people that are going like, okay, so, I picked up Diablo, and I didn't play it for, I haven't played it for a while, so this will help me get back into it. I'll be readjusted. I'll be at a higher level. I'll be maxed out, whatever you want to be. And
do you have to be maxed out to do the Reaper of Souls content? I didn't think you had to be.
I don't think so, but I think it's probably better for you because I think it raises the level limit, doesn't it?
It might. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I just assume that anything that Blizzard does raises some sort of limit.
The only thing I'm kind of worried about is I heard a while back that you had to have done well in the difficulty. Like, there actually was going to be a difficulty requirement to do Reaper of Souls content. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that and went, oh, man, if they're actually expecting me to have done Inferno before playing Reaper, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go past Nightmare. So and on top of that, is that even necessary? You're going to have the 4 difficulties probably for the Reaper of Souls content. So do you really need to, if there is a difficulty requirement, does there need to be?
I would say probably not. I mean, it's in their best interest to make this content as available to everybody as possible. Which I feel when Diablo originally came out, or Diablo 3, I guess, originally came out, that might have been part of its downfall, was the fact that it tried to appeal so much to a bigger audience that hardcore fans were kind of left a little bit in the dust.
Yeah.
And I think if they are doing the difficulty requirement...
on top of that, a lot of the features that the hardcore were looking towards were delayed and then eventually thrown out. I mean, I don't know how many hardcore fans that were totally into the PvP feature.
Yeah.
And then it got thrown out.
So I feel like, if anything, this new content is, trying to get the hardcore fans back, trying to get, maybe some money out of them. It's specifically aimed at them if it does have the difficulty requirement.
Sure. Alex, now you're not really a Diablo fan, but I'm going to let you weigh in.
I have nothing to say, I'm afraid.
No!
I don't play Diablo, so no opinion, guys.
Blizzard, you have failed! This one person's not playing Diablo! So yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you, Aldo. I think in a lot of cases this is just to try and bring the hardcore audience back in. I think they'll be halfway successful. The more hardcore people that were rejecting of what Diablo 3 was will probably not come back. They'll wait until Reaper of Souls hits and then see whether or not Blizzard made good on their word. Going on to the next story. I'm bringing this up just simply because last summer I did kind of interject into the controversy, but Fez is finally in the PSN.
Yeah.
Where Polytron did announce that they were going to do a PlayStation 3 version. This is now going to be just a PSN version. So PS3, Vita, PS4. But I noticed that when this finally hit, Fez 2 talk started happening again. And, that brings up Phil Fish and all the problems that people had with him. I actually thought that Polytron had gone away with him, but I guess his partners took it over. So at this point, is it possible to see Fez 2 from this Polytron Studios, or is Phil Fish just going to raise all kinds of hell if they even remotely try?
This is very much. I mean, if you're familiar at all with the comic book industry, this is very much like an Alan Moore problem.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think about it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends on what rights Phil Fish has. If he has the complete and total rights over Fez and the property, no, they can't. If, however,
they can make their own game, but they just can't do Fez 2.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is if Phil Fish, under his contract or whatever, when he created Fez, doesn't own the rights to it, and Polytron Studios does, there's nothing to stop them from coming out with Fez 2. The difference is we're probably not going to get the product that we expect because it's not from Phil Fish.
Possibly, but the other thing also I'd probably ask is, given all the controversy, look, I kind of weighed in last summer on my viewpoints of Phil Fish. I do think he kind of got the raw end of the deal, given all the trolls he used to get, but I also don't think he reacted very well.
No.
So at this point, would it actually just be better if this Polytron Studios didn't do Fez 2? Tried to make a new property to try and get themselves away from all of the controversy surrounding the game and Phil Fish.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword because, one, it's a very high-risk, high-reward situation for them, where the risk is that they can come out with a product and people are going to have certain expectations, and it may not meet them. And that's definitely their loss. They're going to lose money off of critical reviews and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the high-reward part of this is, if they do come out with a good game, even if it's not like the original Fez, they show their chops. They show that they can do a game without Phil Fish, and they pretty much get free advertising from all the controversy. They pretty much, Phil Fish doesn't approve. Phil Fish is angry over this, blah, blah, blah.
At that point, I actually think Phil would come out, I know that he didn't leave Polytron hating his coworkers. He left Polytron because he got sick and tired of the trolls. So at that point, Phil might just come out and say, yeah, great, good on you guys. You made a great game.
It depends on how Alan Moore he wants to get. If he wants to go out there and just completely destroy Polytron Studios or Fez 2, either or, and just wants to yell at people, there's definitely that possibility. Or he could go the civil route and just say, I'm not involved with this, but congratulations to the team. I wish him the best. So.
Here's hoping that's the route he goes with. Now I know I recommended Indie Game the movie, so that actually has kind of a base understanding of Phil Fish. Did you ever watch that? I mean, did you ever play Fez or
no?
It's almost like he's not a gamer. How dare you be on this hour?
I play games, people. I'm not super hardcore like probably these guys are, but no, actually, I've been meaning to check out Indie Gamer the movie. I still have yet to see it though.
Yes, because one of the things it does is it kind of categorizes Phil Fish as one of the focuses, and all the crap that he went through. I mean, I actually like the fact that the movie does cover the text or the comments he used to get. Dear Phil Fish, I hate you. Bye, kind of thing. And he got a lot of that crap. So as much as I feel for him, I also don't think he reacts very well to it either.
Yeah. It's very much like how was his name, Dong Nong or whatever his name was, the guy that created Flappy Bird.
Yeah, or Jonathan Blow also doesn't react very well to criticism.
Yeah, so I mean, well, the guy that made Flappy Bird didn't react wrong, in my opinion. I think he made whatever his decision was. He did it. But
I don't know. I don't understand the level of backlash the guy got. He developed a really simple game and was successful. In the indie gaming world, we would normally be applauding that. I mean, that's what Braid was. Braid was very simple, and we applauded Jonathan Blow for it.
Yeah.
And then we looked at Flappy Bird and went, "Oh, knock off, knock off, knock off."
And the worst part was when he took it off of the stores, the amount of death threats he received was just horrible.
I didn't. I knew that he was getting death threats for having the game on. I didn't realize he had it the opposite way too.
It multiplied by hundreds.
Wow.
And that's part of the reason why he was like, you people wonder why I left?
You don't do that. You just don't. These guys are... Look, I will applaud any game developers till the day I die, because you know what? They have a right to be able to exist just as much as... I mean, here's the bottom line here. People, you guys are talking to 3 YouTube channel holders. We all are looking for ways to get our content out there. Indie game developers are no different. And so, but it's so 50-50 in the public eye, because the people who are Team Meat won't get criticized for doing things like Bindings of Isaac. I'm not saying that they should, but they won't get criticized for it. But then when Phil Fish, because he has all the controversy around him, he'll get criticized for anything he does. Now, unfortunately, this guy who did the Flappy Bird, it doesn't matter what he does in the future. The community is going to come out against him right off the bat. Yeah. Same thing for Jonathan Blow. Like, a lot of people, I was actually excited when at the PS4 debut, The Witness, his new game, was debuted. And I actually read the comments and went, wow, guys, seriously, let's not be negative to Jonathan Blow when he's got this really good game coming out. So, yeah, that's one of the more frustrating aspects of it. And let's go ahead and get into the last story, because I think it's going to make you sad, Aldo.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, we've had a really bad kind of streak here, Alex. We had Irrational Games, who does BioShock. They're disbanding. Then we had layoffs over at Santa Monica Studios.
Well, you're not going to count the Uncharted writer leaving as a bad week?
Oh, no, because we got more. Because you remember last week you covered Thief.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now they're announcing layoffs at Eidos Montreal. Supposedly because Thief did not do the numbers that they wanted.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's Ubisoft. Ubisoft, I think, kind of overshoots all their games. And when it doesn't do well, then they go, oh, well, we got to lay people off. So I haven't really seen huge amounts, I guess, in that team that's going to get laid off. But I was a little surprised. This game has just barely come out, and already Eidos is kind of putting the hammer down.
Yeah, it's not a good call. I mean, I know I've talked about this before when we talked about layoffs, and they really need to trim the fat elsewhere. Not with the lower people that made an excellent game, that did excellent programming.
Well, I think the biggest news here is Thief has not been out that long.
It hasn't. No, it really hasn't.
Why are you doing this now?
It's this problem that I just have where something goes wrong, the first sign of trouble, and they jump ship and they start kicking people out. And instead, what they need to be doing is they need to be evaluating what's going on at the top. What's going on with the people that have, the 10 times salary that, these programmers have. Mm-hmm. Because clearly the programmers have come out with a great game. Critically, it's been a fantastically received game.
Yes.
It appeals to casual fans, to hardcore fans, to new and old.
Mm-hmm. I would, if I was working as part of that team, I would say, look, before you lay anybody off, give it a month, give it 2 months.
Yeah, really.
Let the money come in, and then make your assessment on whether or not we need to lose 10 people, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like it's been. I think it came out on the 25th, because that's when I started. Yeah,
and it's
25th,
and it just doesn't make any sense, especially since Eidos. I know they're part of Square Enix. Did they do the Tomb Raider remake, or was that somebody else?
That was somebody else, but that was also Square Enix was having the same problem when they released actually Tomb Raider and the Hitman reboot, and I believe what was it the sci-fi one they had
Deus Ex?
Yeah. Where none of those games kind of met their expected goals within the first month, and they didn't panic as much. They didn't do as many. They didn't do layoffs.
No, in fact, Tomb Raider got a definitive edition on the PS4. They're talking about Deus Ex getting a collection on the PS4, but Thief doesn't have the sales that you expected in 1 week, and already we're laying off the team. It was a failed project.
I get where they're coming from, but not every game can be Call of Duty, where they're breaking records every release.
Call of Duty is a good example. Another one would be like Mario numbers. Or the other thing I was kind of thinking, or I was thinking about was, what did Eidos think that they were going to have like Xbox One numbers? Like Microsoft thought they were going to have this huge amount, and they didn't make that in the holidays. That's the part that gets me the most about this, is that you don't really. I mean, this was a returning franchise. Yeah. This hadn't had anything done for a while, so you didn't know if there was going to be enough people interested. Plus, to my knowledge, I think you even said this. Not all the versions were out at that given point. So at that point, maybe wait until you have all the versions out and see how well you're doing.
And I mean, it's one of those things where when Thief came out, it was its own brand new game. It was one of the first real hardcore, stealth games.
Yeah.
And since then, we've gotten so much more. We've gotten the Assassin's Creed, which I wouldn't really call it as hardcore, but you also have the Metal Gear games that we've talked about. So you have all these different games. You have all these competitors. You can't expect those same numbers as you used to because you do have more competition now.
Yeah.
Competition that, ironically, you inspired.
Ironically, you brought up Metal Gear because, I mean, Konami's already... I remember reading on IGN that Konami's already expecting a financial hit because they have like a really... Apparently in Ground Zeroes, they have a really big dramatic scene. They won't tell anybody about it, but they're thoroughly convinced that it's going to drive away some people. Yeah. And so they're already preparing for a hit.
Especially once that scene hits YouTube.
Mm-hmm. When the scene hits YouTube, and the way that they've kind of painted it is that it's you have no comparison on this, Alex. You're not a COD fan, but I do remember hearing about the infamous airport scene in Modern Warfare 2. I've heard that this is kind of that level. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But unfortunately, we do need to take yet another break. And then coming up, I hear we have a great review coming from Aldo. He's got a
review.
Or you have a slight review? Well, here I am trying to advertise it for you. All right. So coming up after the break, we'll be talking about Aldo's review of, is it Castlevania?
Yes.
Lords of
Shadow 2.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy as more geek news, reviews, and opinions come your way. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, everybody. And so now that we've gone over the news today, we have the reviews portion of the hour. And thankfully, Aldo has a game that I have been waiting to hear so much about today. He has a slight review, I guess, of Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2.
I'm still in the process of reviewing it right now. It's funny because I was supposed to start reviewing this one a little earlier, but I was actually still playing Thief. So there's that. Thief and Bravely Default.
Confession. I was playing the previous game I reviewed instead of reviewing a game.
But it's been a fun game. It's actually my first 3D Castlevania game since.
Oh, so you did not play Lords of Shadow? I
did not play Lords of Shadow.
But okay.
I share this idea that actually I think I share with Romney as well. That any game should be able to stand up individually.
Yes. No, I agree.
Clearly, I'm going to be missing, and I am missing some important plot points from the previous game, such as the fact that I'm actually playing as Dracula and not trying to kill him.
Believe it or not. Okay, guys, statute of limitations on spoilers is done. This game's been out for a couple of years. You aren't actually missing very much.
Okay.
Because basically the way that you know that the Gabriel Belmont was Dracula was a twist that happened in the end. That was actually one of the things that a lot of people had problems with in Lords of Shadow was that, what? Because literally it cuts and then it does that. And you're going, what? Where'd that come from? So yes, you are playing as Dracula or Gabriel Dracula, however you want to say it. This is new continuity, people.
Yeah, and so that's why I had understood that it's a complete reboot of the series, and I was like, oh, that's cool, it's a good jumping in point, and clearly not the sequel, but the franchise as a whole. I mean, the last game I played, I believe, was whatever came out right before Symphony of the Night.
Right before...
Because I remember...
Castlevania 64?
Yeah,
I hope not.
I don't think so. I didn't.
No, that would probably be like Dracula X or Bloodlines.
I think it was Bloodlines. It's been a while, and I was never the biggest vampire fan, so I
what?
Really...
You're not a vampire? You never saw Twilight? Oh my gosh!
I saw Twilight. I'm just kidding.
And now
I actually have seen the entire series.
And now I can never forget it.
No, but it's been fun. I mean, the cutscenes are gorgeous.
Yes,
definitely not in-game engine, but I don't mind. Sometimes it's nice. So the story's a little weird. I guess from what I have understood, just kind of at the beginning, is that Satan has children and they're trying to kill you to prevent you from coming back to full strength because Satan wants to come back, and you're the only one that can do that. And so the story takes place in the future of that universe.
Oh, it actually takes place in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, because they were the way that the trailers were painting it was going to be like a couple of years after when Gabriel became Dracula. So it's all modern, or
no, it jumps back and forth. So I mean, there's stuff that's happened in the past, and then there's stuff that's happening after that. And so so the stuff that takes place in the future has been sleeping. I think they said for 100 years or 1,000 years. I can't remember.
I think it's like 1,000 years.
And so you're just he's been sleeping in a coffin, so he has to regain his strength and regain his powers and blah blah blah.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where you get your level progression and that type of thing going on. So it does take place. So you do kind of go back and forth these two different aesthetics, because the future is very shiny and glimmery and kind of dark at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's stuff in the past where he's fighting, knights that have like giant angel wings, and it's kind of it's a big spectacle, and that's kind of, I was not expecting that. I was expecting like a dark, brooding vampire series with some God of War style.
How is the character of him? Because the way that the first Lords of Shadow game ended was, I mean, there was a reason he went dormant. He was actually trying to starve himself so that he would never ever be a danger to people.
He's I don't know how to explain him. I mean, I like him as a character. He's not overly confident, and he's not a complete and total jerk.
Yes.
But he is very much, I have to do what needs to be done so I can get my peace type of thing. Because they do.
Okay, so it sounds to me like they kept with the original character.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I didn't play it. I like him because he is a little bit reluctant, but he's also kind of like, I need to get it done type of thing.
It sounds similar to how Gabriel Belmont was in the first, and I would actually recommend you play the first game, because Gabriel Belmont is one of those few main protagonists that you don't have too many problems with. He has always been just very reluctant on doing any of this. The only reason that he takes on the task in the first Lords of Shadow game is because his wife has been murdered and he wants to see his wife.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's some pretty cool stuff. I mean, it definitely takes liberty with religion. So I mean, that's
yes.
a thing. There's a part where there's like a knight that's he pretty much has that knight on the ropes, and he pulls out his cross and he starts praying. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I used to believe in God like you, and he puts his hand on the cross and he starts doing the same prayer, and he starts scaring him, and then there's a giant explosion when they finish. And I was like, what did I just witness? And
it's Castlevania. It's Lords of Shadow continuity. Some of that stuff you just have to process later to get.
Exactly. And I'm digging it. And the gameplay it's fun. I mean, it really is. And I think we mentioned this before, but it is very much a God of War style.
Yes.
Gameplay, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
I actually think it complements it.
Yeah.
Especially in the fact that I think, we have talked about this in the fact that I've said I really wish the God of War fans would lay off of it, because it's been a long time since a good 3D Castlevania has hit. I think it was actually a really great idea to start the continuity all new, and the combat is actually one of the things I loved from the first game.
Yeah.
That and all the pretty landscapes. That's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you is how did the I know this is going to sound really superficial, guys, but I don't care. How are the graphics?
They're fantastic. I mean, they really are. I mean, like I said, the cutscenes look beautiful. I mean,
so really cool landscapes and things like that. Okay.
The set design, just the design overall looks great. I mean,
wow.
You can definitely tell when you're in the future and when you're in the past. There's a clear distinction between the styles, because the future does feel almost like Batman Beyond, where you have like these huge dark towers and there's technology.
That's kind of how the first game ended, with I dare say it almost ends on kind of a Tim Burton Gotham City-esque kind of look.
Yeah, almost. And the past does feel very, very gothic, almost very decrepit, even almost dry in comparison.
Okay.
To the future. All
right. Well, we're actually coming up on another break. So to sum it up, you aren't done with it, obviously. No. Where would you put it on your scale right now?
So far it does get a little the combat does, at least to me, feel a little repetitive after a while. So currently I would put it maybe at a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Okay. Yeah. And then since we have a gamer who hasn't really picked up this franchise, like you and I have kind of debated taking this up on the Let's Play channel, has Aldo made a compelling enough argument for you to go and pay the $60, Alex, or not yet?
Maybe as a rental.
Maybe as a rental. Okay. All right. Well, we got to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're just going to go. We're probably going to get more into this as well as some of the other things we've discussed today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as more geek news, reviews, and opinions continues right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. So just to kind of end out the technology hour, we've been talking a lot about, the trolling that indie gamers get. We've also been talking about studios maybe not having so much faith in their products and how that's actually going to be kind of hurting them. This is kind of what I wanted the discussion to be about, because unfortunately the entertainment hour will have a little bit more trolling. I cannot begin to say trolling is really beginning to bug me, especially when it comes to certain games, certain movies, things like that. It doesn't help the product, and frankly, the trolls don't ever get what they want. But also just kind of because Alex, you kind of have to deal with the same thing that Aldo is with Eidos Montreal. Sega doesn't have really a whole lot of faith in Sonic Team, and so when they see the numbers like for the first week, they kind of go and cower. And they're like, okay, well, we need to do another Sonic game, but we don't know what to do with it, and we're just going to make the Sonic fans even more mad. What's your take on this? How do we improve this? I want ideas.
Studios really need to stop panicking, right? Not everything's going to be an overnight blockbuster. I think we need to kind of get back to this realization.
Yes.
We've come into this age where everything's like $1 million overnight blockbuster.
Yeah, where everybody expects a game to be Call of Duty numbers. Or World of Warcraft numbers, or whatever.
Well, not even World of Warcraft anymore.
I mean, I can't give the numbers on how Super Mario Brothers 1 did in its first month of release, but...
Amazing, because it sold with the NES.
That's true.
It's almost like we can make that comparison with the Wii and Wii Sports.
That's true.
Which actually did eclipse Mario 1.
Yeah. Sorry.
I've seen so many studios that are like, they're just hitting the panic button because it's not like, oh my gosh, it hasn't made $1 billion overnight. We failed.
No!
It's like some games are going to probably be more of a sleeper hit.
Yes, and then on top of that, they do this, and then they start listening to the trolls. And here's the thing: sometimes the trolls might be right. Sometimes the trolls might say you need to go rework your level design, and in some cases, flame shield up. They're the Sonic "his legs are too long" argument.
His arms are blue.
His arms are blue. His eyes are green. Can you tell, Aldo, we've had this talk a couple of dozen times?
I can see that.
And so, but at that point, then the developers listen to those people, and we get, substandard games. Mm-hmm. The best example that I can give, and Aldo, you probably would know this better than Alex would, the whole Zelda argument, how the Wind Waker was going to be the end of Zelda, and then they did Twilight Princess, and I still, to this day, hear Zelda fans go, oh, I like Twilight Princess, but the Wind Waker was better.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And Zelda games are kind of like Pixar. I always like to call the Pixar effect. where you know how I like my effects, like the Molyneux effect.
We will one day categorize all of these into a TV trope site, and Alex will do it for us, and then we will have all of the various Aldo effects.
So the Pixar effect is that you have a franchise, you have a company that puts out products so good that when they have a bad product, that bad product is still better than the rest of the fodder out there. Which is kind of my opinion with Twilight Princess, which, in my opinion, Twilight Princess is not a bad game, not by any means, but when you compare it to Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, it's really not the best Zelda title, but it's still a much better title than...
And one of the arguments that goes a lot against Twilight Princess is the fact that the fans complain so much. They wanted their GameCube demo Zelda, that they finally got their wish, and then, holy crap, that isn't quite what they wanted.
Yeah.
I actually liked how one podcaster put it, and unfortunately he's not there at that podcast anymore, but he was basically like, it's almost like the game developers know what you want better than you know what you want, kind of thing. It's almost like Miyamoto knows more what you want from a Zelda game than you do.
Yeah, exactly. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I think it's kind of like what's going on with Nintendo now, how there's so much backlash against the Wii U, and Nintendo's obviously kind of struggling right now, and a lot of people are trying to all throw in their 2 cents. It's like, you get the people like, okay, Nintendo, just pick your battles, start expanding your base a little more. Then you get the really stupid people who are like, Nintendo, it's time to drop the Wii U. Stop making these gimmicky consoles. Go make a new console. And I'm like, that's a bad idea. That's exactly
that Nintendo's not listening to you.
That's why exactly Sega did so badly after the late 90s. And that's why Sega doesn't make consoles anymore.
Exactly.
But what it also kind of reminds me of, kind of going with Aldo said, with the Sega Dreamcast, everybody was saying how bad the Sega Dreamcast was. Yeah. Now that the Sega Dreamcast is gone, everybody's saying how good it is.
Yeah, it's like, it was ahead of its time. Yeah,
it's like
was.
I mean, we were talking about Evo. It's enshrined at Evo.
Yeah.
It literally is, because most of, like, when they go to Third Strike, when they go to, when they had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in their tournaments, they went to the Dreamcast version. It was the most balanced.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that you brought that up, Alex, because that's what happened. We all, even though the Dreamcast, like, a lot of people hated on it when it first came out, now it's a golden icon of an era gone by. Kind of thing. Try to explain that. All right. So unfortunately, we are out of time for this hour. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're coming back with the entertainment hour. We'll be joined by Romney, and we've got only a few things to talk about news related. We'll get into the Oscar results, obviously. We're going to get into a little bit more trolling as the communities go and do it. But the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about today is
raccoons.
We should be talking about raccoons because you did not get your ample opinion about raccoons last week. But we're actually going to be getting into the movie The Wind Rises. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we come back from more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.
I aim to misbehave.
If you test me, you will fail.
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear. That comes later.
Okay, look, we both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us.
You thought this was over? But we've only just begun to geek out. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.
Welcome back, everybody, to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. We are in the entertainment hour. Hopefully all of the new people who are joining us, how are you today? How has your week been? It's been great for me, because we've been talking about Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. Do you think I say this name enough, guys? I mean, seriously, do you think I say the name enough?
No,
not really. And quite a cast we have today. So first of all, we are being joined by Aldo Gomez, who is the video game reviewer for The Globe. We are also being joined by Stephen Romney, who is the movie reviewer for The Globe. Say hi, Aldo. I mean Romney. I mean Raldo. I mean raccoons.
Raccoons. I'm never going to let that go.
No, literally. We are going to name the episode. We need to talk more about freaking raccoons. And so, Romney, how are you doing this fine day?
Pretty good. Just got out of my storyboarding class, and it was a bit crazy for varying reasons, but... Well,
and unfortunately, we're having a little bit of a mic issue because we only have 3 mics here, guys, so you might have to bear with us for this hour.
All right, this should be good. Hopefully you guys can hear me, and I'll try to speak up.
There we go. So, what?
I was going to say, for those of you that are good at math, it seems like we have 3 people and 3 mics, and that shouldn't be a problem, but there's a 4th person.
Oh, no! There is a 4th! We are forever ruined! Also, we are being joined by, to people who follow my YouTube work, you would also follow Drak and Shadow, and in turn, the Drak and Shadow channel is actually Let's Plays and vlogs and things like that done by myself, as well as my brother-in-law Alex, a.k.a. the Shadow Blazer, and he has decided to grace us with his presence.
Howdy, folks. How's it going?
I almost expected chaos control from you.
I could have, but that would be too easy.
Yes, and so for those who do not know him, his YouTube channel is ShadowBlazer3000. He does anime reviews, and there's a specific reason we have brought him in today. Why? Because we have a big movie to talk about, and I thought all four of us saw it, but unfortunately some of us weren't actually able to get around to it. So now our job is to convince the one that couldn't. So at that point, as far as news goes this week, we don't really have a whole lot to talk about. It's been kind of a slow news week. So we are going to get into the Oscar results a little bit.
And
because
some trailers did drop recently.
Ooh, yes.
Like
yes.
the Annie trailer, for example.
Yes.
The Annie trailer. We also have talked about like Steven Spielberg, who's going to do West Side Story, which is weird.
You're sure about that?
Yeah, it was actually advertised. He's considering taking on West Side Story.
I could see it. I mean, when it comes to like history, he's at least fairly good. I mean, with Schindler's List, Lincoln, he does a good job. So
yes.
he'd probably handle it pretty well.
So yeah, we will get into the Oscar results. We're going to get into a little bit. Romney's kind of joining us right now, so at this point he doesn't know really that we talked a little bit of kind of like trolling in the last hour. We're going to get into that a little bit because it just so happens that there was a lot of trolling on a certain story this week, and I do kind of want to get into that. And on top of that, we're also going to be having kind of a big review section today. Why? Because three of us went and saw Hayao Miyazaki's. What's going on? Raccoons?
No, I'm just laughing because you're like three of us went to go see it.
Well, it was supposed to be four of us, Aldo.
You dropped the ball.
You dropped the ball here, man. I mean, seriously, you didn't finish Lords of Shadow 2. No. We love Aldo. So, yes, we're going to be talking about The Wind Rises and our opinions on it. I have a feeling we'll have to talk a little bit about Hayao Miyazaki because this might be his last film. And
his last feature, at least, according to the press release when he first announced the retirement.
Yeah. So at that point, and also whether or not this movie is kind of fitting to be his last feature, things like that. So I actually did want to kind of reserve a lot of time for that. It's a big deal, especially since Oscars happened and a lot of people, I actually saw a little bit of backlash on the Oscars that he didn't win. And
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that he would at least get the Oscar, but compared to some of the other nominees and even compared to my reactions of the film, I can kind of see why the Academy didn't necessarily choose The Wind Rises to win the Oscar.
Yes.
I'm just glad Despicable Me 2 didn't win. If that film won, heads would have rolled.
Or The Croods.
But let's remember that The Wind Rises does not have an amazing song like Let It Go.
No, apparently it does
The
not.
award-bait song.
It needed to have a song called Let
It
It
had a song, just not in
did have a
English.
song.
Right. It needed to have a song
Plus, the
called Let It
was written
Fly.
More than 30 years
No,
ago.
I would dare say, although there's one other thing that needs to be remembered. Because one thing that has to be mentioned is that Studio Kara did work on The Wind Rises. And so I just want to ask you, Aldo, do you remember that one time where that one biplane was really cool and then it turned into an Ava and then Asuka came out of nowhere and tried to explain religious symbolism and we just never got it? And then Rey came out and just said, oh, I'm just going to sit here and strut.
Yeah.
Go look that up. It's a photoshopped image. It was absolutely awesome when I found it. But in the meantime, unfortunately, we are going to take a quick break and then get into the news this week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions continues right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. So let's go ahead and get into this week's news. Obviously, the Academy Awards happened. And I actually want to kind of get into this concept of it. All of us, in fact, me and Alex actually put our predictions up on our website, or on our, I want to say website, but it's YouTube channel, on what we thought happened. And frankly, we were kind of successful, weren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that 12 Years as a Slave would win, because that just seemed to be not denigrating the movie or anything like that, but it's kind of a known trope amongst the Academy Awards that if there's a hot button issue one, it will probably get a lot of recognition. The example that I would give would be A Beautiful Mind.
I just kind of want to point out two things. One, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Quentin Tarantino was ever nominated for any sort of Oscar until he released Django Unchained.
No, he had ones before.
He had ones before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, most of his nominations, I think, tend to come from writing, because that seems to be more of his strong
for best-
suit.
Yeah.
for best screenplay.
He usually gets,
And the second thing I want to point out was Ellen nailed it at the beginning when she said there's one of two possibilities: 12 Years a Slave takes the Oscar, or B, we're all racists.
Ellen did have a great.
That's
joke,
kind of one of the things where I'm not trying to be the dork here, but that was like when I saw 12 Years as a Slave was in the Best Picture, I'm like, it has to win. Because if it doesn't, then that's going to be some major commentary on
the Academy,
yeah, exactly. And all that.
Well, because I remember too when Brokeback Mountain lost the Oscar to Crash. Oh, there's so much backlash.
It lost to Crash, really?
Yes.
We're talking the Jason Statham movie.
Not the Jason.
Okay.
Statham.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, whoa,
I was like,
holy crap, really?
I like that movie, but not enough to give it an Oscar.
The Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal movie, about the...
No, but you said Crash, and there's a Jason Statham movie named Crash.
Okay, no, we're talking not Paul Greengrass. I can't remember his name. Yeah, it's just this little kind of low budget indie semi-indie film because it had like 1 million producers, and it's kind of a commentary of Los Angeles society and how all these different characters come together and interact. Frankly, I think that's kind of why it won, because a lot of the Academy are actors, so they love big actor films.
Yes,
especially considering and with the turnout for this year's winners, another thing a lot of people tend to forget is that they recently added a lot of people to the Academy at the start of the year to hopefully stem the tide of kind of to cut down on the nepotism, and hopefully basically it all just translate to, please watch our telecast, public. We need the ratings.
Exactly. And then the other prediction that I know that we came across, and I do want to get into a little bit, obviously, with our review, is the animation category, because you and I both kind of looked at it and went, yeah, Disney's going to take this away, even though it probably shouldn't. Which we were correct on, and Romney's already kind of expressed that that's kind of how you view it too. Is that maybe The Wind Rises should have gotten away with it?
And actually, it was more based on kind of how I thought of The Wind Rises coming out of it. To kind of play devil's advocate, I can kind of see why the Academy wouldn't necessarily choose it because. And I may get a lot of flack from the Ghibli fans out there.
Flame shield up.
Flame shield up. I personally think that The Wind Rises didn't necessarily deserve the Oscar. When I heard that it didn't win, I wasn't upset. I just kind of think, oh, it didn't win. But then again, I thought about it, and I'm just like, well I can kind of see why the Academy wouldn't necessarily give it the Oscar.
We can at least rest in the fact that I think it was Alex that told me this, where the Japanese kind of equivalent did honor Hayao Miyazaki and gave The Wind Rises an award.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do want to point out, I was actually kind of proud that it received a nomination at all. I mean, when you see the other films in there, it's almost like they could have just not done that. You could have just chosen something.
You guys
else.
are really trying to get me to talk about the Croods, aren't you? Alex didn't want me to in the vlog. Really?
Well,
Academy Awards, the Croods.
That was my reaction when I saw Despicable Me 2 was nominated.
Yeah,
I wasn't so mad about that one, but when I looked at the Croods, I'm like, seriously, you should have just given Best Supporting Actor to Samuel L. Jackson for Turbo! For crying out loud!
Or just to Samuel Jackson just for everything. Not even just for any specific movie. It's like, here's the Best Supporting Actor, Samuel L. Jackson.
I got a great idea. Let's just dig Snakes on a Plane out. Oops. Let's just dig Snakes on a Plane back out. The internet gods are going to be angry with us. We should just dig out Snakes on a Plane and have Samuel L. Jackson nominated in all categories, and he just wins them all. That's just the way it should go. Or even better, we should just nominate raccoons. Are we for that?
Raccoons.
I was I was still hoping against all odds that Madoka Magica would secure a nomination. I knew it was a big long shot there.
That is a big leap of faith, my friend.
I knew even if it got the nomination, they wouldn't stand a snowball's chance of winning. But still thought, it might get a nomination.
I wanted Road to Ninja
because this is a pretty weak year as far as a lot of animated films go. It was mostly sequels and and Pixar's new film was kind of meh for everybody. And
I liked Frozen, but I definitely think it was it worthy of an Academy Award? There are other Disney films that are more worthy of it.
Yeah, I mean, best song I can understand, but best animated feature, I can see where some people may not be too happy with. But compared to the other nominations,
yes,
not the worst one that could have won.
Exactly. So, but the one recognition that I do want to kind of get is, I kind of have to eat a little bit of crow due to our vlog because you wanted Gravity to win a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you kind of got your wish, Alex.
Yeah, I think Gravity did probably a little better than I expected it to.
So at that point, congrats on that. But I think we basically called Best Animation and Best Picture, and then we were hoping Gravity walked away with something, and they did. They totally did.
It's sweat.
One of the biggest problems I had with the Oscars was actually the fact that Lone Ranger was nominated for Best Visual Effects.
Yes, that bugged the living crap out of me.
Makeup.
Yeah, and can we talk about the fact that, I don't know, Pacific Rim, it was a thing that happened in 2013?
Yeah,
Yes!
Yeah. That was an oversight.
Praise be to the altar of Guillermo.
Yeah, I think that kind of just plays into one of the major problems of the Academy. It's just the case of rampant nepotism. It's kind of the case of it's about who you know, and
yes,
there's a reason Harvey Weinstein is known as the Oscar Whisperer.
There's a reason that like diehard movie geeks will still get into the Academy Awards, but like the geeks who watch the Marvel movies and things like that, they get frustrated. Why? Because they think those were the greatest movies ever, and at the very most those people have is best makeup, best choreography, best visual effects, things like that. Hence why those have been classified as the Geek Awards. And you're exactly right. If somebody passes away in the middle of it, I can guarantee you, and I'm not spitting on anybody's grave, next year we're going to see Mockingjay and a lot of that stuff because of Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of that happen.
And it's not that he doesn't deserve an Oscar. I haven't seen, Mocking.
No, it's just going to be the fact that was.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet, but I can tell you right off the bat, he's done better films that he didn't win an Oscar for.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because I don't remember if The Master got any nominations at the last Academy Awards or not. Maybe for screenplay.
I think it did. I'm not 100%.
But at this point, since Mockingjay is going to be considered his last movie, even though he did have another one in development, it's going to be considered his last movie. That is going to get a lot of attention and probably an honoring of Philip Seymour Hoffman at the Oscars.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of the same case like how you'll notice during the telecast they didn't reference anything recent. They referenced probably one of his best known roles, which was Capote.
Yes,
it's kind of the same case with James Gandolfini. Well, except James Gandolfini, they referred to enough said.
Yeah,
which was kind of weird.
So while we're getting into this, we've gone into me and Alex's kind of viewpoint. Romney, how do you think the Oscars went? Did you see any kind of predicted winners come out that you wanted, or?
Well, to be honest, the only one I really predicted was Best Picture because it was more a case because that was the only ones that I've seen enough of them to actually make a prediction. Although my sister had quite a few predictions in regards to some of the more visual stuff like set design and stuff like that because she kept calling Great Gatsby for a lot of those nominations.
Yeah.
Now that I know that the set designer is actually married to Baz Luhrmann, it explains a lot of choices. And so, the only ones I really predicted was basically 12 Years a Slave for Best Picture, and I don't know which one it was. I definitely knew that there was going to be some for Gravity, at least for the visual effects. Didn't necessarily expect editing, but then again, editing and directing kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
But then again, I guess because I only paid attention to the visual effects because one of the visual effects teacher that was here last semester actually worked on the film.
I didn't know that.
We have a story of that on the Globe website.
Yeah, kind of outdated by now, though, since he's now left Slick and is now working at Frame Store Montreal working on Paddington Bear.
Oh, really?
And I think he worked on 47 Ronin as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Sadly.
Sadly.
Well, he got his start on Alvin and the Chipmunks. So.
That's as good a place to start.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, Aldo, did you have any predictions for it? Did it go in any way for you, or did you just not care?
No, I actually sat through and watched all 3 hours of it.
Wow!
I love the Oscars.
Congratulations!
I did the same thing too. I watched the entire telecast as well because my friends and I usually had an Oscar party, but this year I wasn't invited, and so I was just kind of there. I was even thinking of doing like a live stream, like watch the Oscars with Romney, but I had homework to do, and so I basically just watched the telecast while working on assignments and while cooking, and basically just kept tabs. Mostly because I was curious how Ellen's turn at hosting would stack up against Seth MacFarlane's. And really, the one thing I like is that Ellen didn't try to outdo Seth MacFarlane. That's the one thing I definitely liked.
She did her own thing.
Style.
Yeah.
And the pizza bit was funny.
Yeah. No, but honestly, kind of, I don't do the predictions things because I don't see enough movies. There's some predictions I do try to go for, and which I don't know, like the animation one was one of the few that I was actually kind of looking forward to. Because I feel like Disney or Pixar usually has a stranglehold on that category. And
that's why with a brave win, that was like the UGG heard out around the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So with Miyazaki up at the reins for it, I was like, I really don't think it'll take it, but there's a chance.
As long as the Croods doesn't walk away with this thing, we're
exactly.
fine.
And my only other apart from Leonardo DiCaprio not getting an Oscar again.
That was one prediction I got wrong. That's for sure.
Yeah, no,
that's right. You did do that.
I laugh it because minutes after the telecast or that section was done, there was a picture of him almost crying from that telecast with what's it say? Don't let them in, don't let them see. I was like, yeah, but no, I mean honestly, the biggest disappointment I have is the same disappointment I have every year, which is you have these great films like I just mentioned, kind of Pacific Rim, the Star Trek Into Darkness, and I think Thor: Dark World, which I think were much better films for special effects than some of the ones that were nominated.
Mm-hmm.
And because of like we were saying, the nepotism, all that things, a lot of these sci-fi fantasy films just don't get nominated because of that. I was actually I was surprised that the Desolation of Smaug got a nomination.
Yeah.
It got 2 nominations, didn't it?
I think so.
But it was a little shocking to see it get
I
anything.
think part of it also ties into because one thing that I've noticed looking at the Academy, they tend to have a kind of an aversion to a lot of the more fan favorite films.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of one of my beefs with them too.
Yeah, with Lord of the Rings, I think it's kind of they probably rationalize it's Tolkien. It's
actually. Do you want to know honestly, Romney? I think what will happen with The Hobbit is kind of what happened with Return of the King. They don't consider it finished, and so at that point they'll bring in the There and Back Again, and that'll be the one that gets the awards that this this movie is going to get.
Yeah.
I'm seriously doubting it's going to see much more than what the other two have seen, which is those sound, makeup, and visual effects category.
I don't know. Peter Jackson has a lot of pull there.
Wait, and am I the only one that thinks it's weird that, not necessarily Frozen, but like Desolation of Smaug doesn't get nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay? Like, is that weird? Too?
I don't. It's split unnecessarily into 3 parts. I mean,
yeah, but it's still an adapted screenplay.
I don't know exactly how they judge this.
Well, that's probably the rationale they're using to not nominate is the fact that it is dividing one book into 3 parts, whereas a lot of the scripts that were based on books were based on one book.
But we're all forgetting the major award that the Desolation of Smaug should have gotten, which was very simple: Best Barrel Cameo done by Bumper. I'm sorry, no. Here's the thing. I wanted Desolation to get some stuff, but I also wanted The Fellowship, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King to do that. And so at that point, I actually appreciated that the year the Oscars did consider Return of the King walked away with it. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping happens here with The Hobbit. I kind of agree with you, Alex. I don't think it's going to happen as prominently. But in the meantime, we are actually going to need to take a quick break. After the break, we're going to get into our next story, but then we are going to totally get into The Wind Rises, Hayao Miyazaki's supposed last film. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions continues. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions right here on Radio SLCC, your online student source. We are back with Aldo, Romney, and Alex, and we've got one more piece of news to talk about before we get into The Wind Rises, so contain your excitement. This is something I just wanted to bring up. It's not a big story. You know, we had trailers come up throughout the week and things like that, but this story actually frustrated me a little bit. So it was reported on IGN that the Age of Ultron shooting schedule was going to be changed around because it's going to accommodate for Scarlett Johansson being pregnant. This is not something new. We're used to this kind of concept. I think Alias at one point did because of Jennifer Garner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even Malcolm in the Middle, they did that when Jane Kaczmarek was pregnant as well.
Yeah. So this is something that we're not unfamiliar with. It's happened before. It's not a bad thing. But then when I started researching this just to see, you know, what Joss was going to be doing, because I had a feeling they were just going to up all of her scenes and then let her go be pregnant, I came across just the bunch of trolling comments. I really wish I could have brought them in here verbatim for you guys to read, but they were just like, oh, that's okay. This is just giving them a reason to recast her because Scarlett Johansson was never a good Black Widow to begin with. That B, how dare she get pregnant? Now I'm going to have to wait an extra 2 months for my avengers movie. Literally, this is stuff we got.
2 months? Does this person not know how long pregnancy lasts?
Oh,
And now,
I just realized that could be taken in a very dark context.
Yes, it could. And now, moments of logic with Aldo. But it just kind of bothered me. I mean, we've been seeing this in media for the longest time. You know, there have been various concepts of it. I think even like Joss Whedon is familiar with this as well. I think Charisma Carpenter had to do something with either Buffy or Angel to accommodate her being pregnant. It's just something that has to happen. And here's the thing. It says set to accommodate. It didn't say delay. I'm pretty sure Joss has already kind of figured this concept out. He's got a contingency.
Using stunt doubles and stand-ins to fill in for more of the action scenes.
Yeah, they even say in the article they're going to cut her Winter Soldier tour a little bit so that she can go and be pregnant. That's fun. I don't know how else to say it, guys. Sorry, but
we're all guys.
We have no relation on this whatsoever, at least somewhat.
But there's also like what happened with Robert Downey during Iron Man 3 when he got the injury and they used a body double and they just put his face on that guy's face.
And the public lashed out at him too. They're like, "Oh, Iron Man 3 is going to be delayed now. How dare you delay my satisfaction of seeing a third?" Guys, it's just
movie.
Well, first of all, the director has contingency plans for things like this happening. I mean, look at Peter Jackson. How many injuries did he have in the 3 years they did the Lord of the Rings films? Directors cover this kind of thing.
Studios have to plan this because actors are human.
But lashing out at these actors or actresses is, I'm sorry, it's just asinine to me. It's pointless.
Sometimes the actors die 9 days before they're finished shooting.
7 days, yeah.
7 days.
Heaven forbid, you know? And on top of that, Scarlett has been getting a lot of flack for not only just the how dare she get pregnant kind of thing. Apparently, now here's the thing. I actually was kind of on that side of, I didn't really like her as the pick for Black Widow, but then I saw her in Avengers and she was fine. And she's been getting a lot of flack also, I guess, because of a sponsorship she took on earlier in the year. And I just don't get it. It's, you know, why are we getting so mad at Scarlett? Because heaven forbid she got pregnant. I'm sorry she has a human life outside of what you expect her, or outside of the Comic-Cons.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And so at that point, that just kind of frustrates me. And this will probably be something we talk about later, too, because trolling just bugs me.
Yeah.
I don't get why people get so mad at this. And I know Aldo's kind of thinking in the back of his head, you're really one to talk, Mr. Mike lashed out at Michael Bay 2 weeks ago because of Transformers. And that's a totally different thing. I get totally, yes, I've had those moments. We've all had those moments, but in all honesty, they don't really help the concept. They don't help the schedule. I mean, Avengers is not going to come out I don't think Avengers is going to be delayed, but it's not going to come out in 2 weeks. So you're going to have plenty of time to get the filming done. If anything, they're going to get Scarlett's stuff done first and then move on to everybody else. And Alex, you look like you have something to say there.
I think it's nice, though, that they're just going to work around her instead of recast her. Because
no, they shouldn't recast her. She's fine.
I mean, it just could be a contractual thing, but I think, it would be so easy to recast her. But no, really, they can work around her, and I think they'll do fine.
They've already established her in Iron Man 2 and Avengers that she's Black Widow. To recast her at this point...
And Captain. She's in Captain America, too.
Well, yeah, it's just kind of a case of, if you were trying to replace a key actor, because the same thing came up when Robert Downey Jr.'s contract ran up. It's like, oh, well, you can't just recast Tony Stark, because you can't just recast one of them. If you're going to recast, you have to recast everyone.
It's a reboot. It's a reboot of the franchise right there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wasn't totally for Scarlett when she got cast, just because she didn't really fit my image of Black Widow. And granted, my image of her was like Ultimates Universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she turned out fine. And so I don't get the level of backlash that this character, or that she's gotten for playing this character, much less, oh, heaven forbid, having a real life. It just, I don't know. I wanted to get into that because that bugs me.
Yeah.
Especially considering that she still does other movies aside from Marvel. But
exactly. She was
in...
Is that Jessica Alba who's Sin City?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she was in Don John, earlier in the year. And then she was also the voice of Samantha in Her.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she was dubbing over a different actor, that was done kind of... That's a whole separate can of worms because of various decisions made in post-production, but... She still does other movies. A lot of these actors still do other movies. They're not attached to the hip to a lot of these franchises. I mean, look at Chris Hemsworth. He's still been going around doing a lot of these other films.
Yeah, exactly.
I know a lot of people were disappointed that Rush didn't like getting even any nominations at this Academy Awards.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where I kind of want to put it out here of lay off. Just people have lives too. Lay off.
Yeah.
You're still getting what you want. I don't get why you're being so mad. Just lay off. Except for my criticism of Transformers, because that is totally just.
Well, yeah, but when you're criticizing a director, criticizing a director for potential decisions they make, that's kind of different because they have more of an effect of how the film will actually turn out. Like an actor has like a life problem, that's not going to affect the film. But if it's something specific to the director that specifically is reflective of what choices they'll make over a film, their criticism is justified because they're the director. They're the one with the vision of how a film is going to turn out.
Like when somebody's working on a 24-episode long anime and they go into deepening depression and the whole thing takes a weird turn into weird sound.
I see what you did there. And that's a great segue, actually, because we're talking about Anno. So let's go ahead and get into The Wind Rises, guys. So I'm not really going to give kind of an overarching story. We'll probably do that for our vlog because that's where we're going to get spoiler heavy. But
yeah, plus on the Globe's website, I do give kind of a brief summary.
So you get the full one because, and I actually did think that this was a very unique movie in the fact that it was an animated movie, but it was supposed to be kind of a biography in a way.
Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of something that Kurosawa did at the end of his career, where it wasn't so much that they were making a film to kind of leave a mark, but it was kind of a film that wasn't so much supposed to be, audience, come reflect over this person's career, but more something that the artist was making to kind of reflect on themselves, because Kurosawa did the same thing with his last film, Madadayo.
Yes.
And although I haven't seen it, looking at kind of from what I've read about and looked into what the film was about, it's kind of the same thing. It's also a biopic, kind of in the same sort of tone, where it's very reflective, kind of as if an artist is making a last painting that's kind of reflecting everything they've done over the course of their career and kind of channeling all they know into one thing.
So let's just kind of go over all what, like, in brief, like what we thought of the film, and then we can get into the details of it, like all the Ghibli tropes, because I have some talk about the Ghibli tropes. I overall liked the film. I thought, and here's the thing, for people who've been following me on YouTube, I have been going through the Ghibli canon because I had never done that before. So I'm like halfway through it and decided to go see The Wind Rises. And I'll admit, I liked the film. I loved the overall story of it, as well as where they took their own Ghibli liberties here and tried to explain the story. So I would recommend it fairly highly to people, especially if you're an animation buff. Alex, you're the anime reviewer here amongst Romney. What did you think of it?
Oh, I loved this movie. It was really great. I have seen a number of Miyazaki movies over the years, and he always does find a way to enchant you, even if you maybe don't like the movie too much.
Yes.
But this was, I tell you, if this is his last film or the last real feature he's going to do, it's definitely a great way to go out on. And I kind of picked up what Romney said here. I feel like the movie is sort of his own allegory for his own career.
Yeah.
And kind of reflective in that sense.
That's actually one of the things you and I were talking about, was like, when people think of and maybe you'll agree with this, Romney, when people think of Miyazaki and they think of his tropes and things like that, like when you think his magnum opus, his greatest works, it's always the nature-themed stuff that he does. But I actually would dare argue, people tend to forget all the other little underlying themes that he puts in every movie. There's always a biplane in there. There's always flight of some kind, and if he can get a plane flying, he will. And if he can't get a plane flying, he's going to show flight physics in another way. I mean, Kiki's Delivery Service, I don't think actually had a biplane in it, but
it had a Zeppelin and a magic broom.
Well, there you go. And at that point, the magic broom kind of became the biplane that he wanted to do a whole lot with. So this is actually a little bit more fitting as being his magnum. It's the stuff he wanted to do.
Yes.
He may have wanted to do the nature theme, but planes have always been his passion. Hence why Ghibli is what it's named.
Mm-hmm.
So, Romney, what were your overall feelings of it?
Well, there were some problems I did kind of have with some of its execution, but like I said in my review, I don't know if some of the problems were specifically how the film was produced initially, or if it was something that was added in or as a result of Disney handling it for U.S. distribution. And it was kind of more some minor stuff, like how some of the pans on some of the animation looked kind of artificial. It's kind of one of those things that you can really see. It's hard to describe, but given how animation works and how you have to effectively slide a page, it was like the pans and some of the stuff it wasn't so smooth, and some of the editing also was a little bit iffy, especially with the first dream sequence when he first meets Caproni as a kid.
That's the name I was trying to think of.
The cuts there were a little quick. I mean, throughout the later parts of the film, they managed to actually smooth out, but just during that beginning, it was a little bit jarring. It didn't really evoke kind of a sense of wonder, per se, that they were trying to, because of how quick the cuts were. It was just kind of a case of, it felt like either Disney had done some edits to it, which would have been bad, or just a case of, they're going a little too quick here. Maybe they're just trying to bounce through a lot of it really quick to get some of the good stuff at the end.
I would actually kind of get... I really did think that they were trying really hard to emphasize a life story in 90 to, maybe...
this movie was 2 hours long. So.
2 hours, Like, they were really trying to crunch it all down. And that's kind of sad, especially since it's supposed to be a biography film, but, that you do have to add your own Ghibli taste to it.
Yeah, I think the story really gets going once we see Jiro as an adult. Like, that's where things really start picking up, really start going, because now everything can kind of slow down. You can see things kind of...
Well, that's one of the things that's interesting, is when he's a kid and a teenager, we have more dream sequences. In his adult life, we have very little.
Yeah,
most of it's based on his own life.
Yeah, and another issue that I kind of took with it, again, I kind of did pick on the English dub itself in my review, because one of the things I noticed that the dubbers probably had trouble translating some of the dialogue to... Because with Japanese, at least based on my very limited understanding, some phrases that would be like a whole sentence in English could be boiled down to 2 words in Japanese just because of how the writing style works.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like with some of the lines being said really quickly, that you could tell they were trying to kind of sync it up because it was probably a much shorter phrase in the original Japanese. And so that's one thing that I kind of noticed a little bit, was that they maybe had some translations and some lip sync errors trying to kind of keep up with it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so we actually do need to take our last break of the hour. When we come back, we'll be talking a little bit more about The Wind Rises, and I guess we're going to be making our argument to Aldo that he needs to go see this movie, especially at that one scene where the biplane does transform into a giant robot. Studio Kara worked on this thing, people. I'm going to make fun of it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions continues. Welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, guys, and we have more talk about The Wind Rises, the latest Miyazaki film and probably the last big feature that he will take on as his role in Studio Ghibli kind of changes. I actually want to start up with Alex. So you basically wanted to sacrifice your arm to get me to see this movie. I mean, you were totally excited about it. You wanted to advertise it up and down. I mean, you and I even had the conversation. I'm like, should I even be seeing this? I haven't seen Howls. I haven't seen Spirited Away and things like that. Right. So does it live up to the hype? Should it have gotten that award? These are the questions that I would like you to answer, especially given the anime fan you are and the anime reviewer, because eventually this stuff will probably be coming to you, to your channel anyway.
As far as The Wind Rises and its Oscar goes, of course I would have loved to have seen it win the Oscar. I don't know if maybe with a little less controversy it might have won, just because there's a lot of different controversy around this film between people saying it promotes smoking, which, given that it's a historical film, it's really not that accurate to say.
That's about as true as Porco Rosso.
Yeah, I mean it's glorifying the Japanese War. It's about the man who designed the plane that bombed Pearl Harbor. Though, strictly speaking, it's more of the prototype of the plane.
Yeah, the prototype
that became
Zero.
the Zero.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this movie was really good. One thing, I watch a lot of anime, of course, and there's not a ton of biographical films out there in the world of anime. There's not a lot of... There are serious dramas, but there's...
Well, yeah, and I mean, something that's... Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there's never a lot of serious films like this. I love biographical films and I love true story films, and this is something that's so different that I could see that even a person who maybe just appreciates animation in general, maybe even the non-animation fan period, might even be able to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and kind of what I was about to kind of say is that it's kind of the same case. There aren't as many animated films that kind of covers darker material, and that's one thing I definitely liked about this film, was that it actually was willing to address something that wasn't the usual light and happy fare, but actually had a grounding in reality. Because I mean, like I mentioned during the break, this isn't exactly Grave of the Fireflies territory, but it's definitely something more serious than you would expect from Studio Ghibli or from animation in general. It's definitely... And again, a lot of people think, oh yeah, glorifying Japan. Like, well, the war isn't the actual point of it. And that's something they even make a point to address in the film itself, with Caproni talking about after the war is done, when he's showing off his bombing plane, this is the huge plane I want to design, and he's designing a passenger plane. And it's the same case with the character of Jiro. He's not designing it with the intent of, oh, this is going to be used to kill people. He just wants to see it fly. That's all
exactly
he cares about.
So we've all three of us gone into the fact that we like this film, and hopefully we have convinced Aldo, but Aldo's kind of like,
yes.
Okay, good. Yes, we have done our job!
Yeah, there's one thing we definitely should point out. Anybody who hasn't seen it that's listening to this, don't go into this expecting something like Howl's or Kiki or any of the usual fantasy, like family-friendly fantasy fare. This isn't that kind of film. And that's something that may throw a lot of people off.
If anything, the best comparison that I would give people is if you like Totoro, if you liked Whisper of the Heart, where they were more inspiring films, that's where The Wind Rises hits. Is that it really, like, Alex was there kind of watching me do this. When a movie inspires you, it just kind of lifts you up. And this is one of those movies that literally did that for me. I don't know if that had the same thing for you.
That gave me the same effect, probably more so than other Miyazaki films. And,
yeah.
You know, I did love Totoro, and I liked Whisper of the Heart, and dare I say, I liked Grave of the Fireflies for what it is. As horrible, not horrible as in it's bad, but it's
I may have to see this film.
It's a really
Have you not seen Firefly?
I have been told very many times, don't see it.
Prepare to cry.
It's not a bad.
That's why I've been told not to see it.
And another film that's also
you will never get out of the depression.
You don't.
Well,
really.
It's kind of the same case with even films like Barefoot Gen, for example. That's another kind of serious-minded biographical sort of story. Although it's not an actual biographic piece based on a real person, the person who wrote the story is still based it on his actual experiences living through the bombing of Hiroshima.
Well, that was the same with Grave of the Fireflies. That was also the author kind of channeling his own mistakes and grief that he made in his childhood into the story, this more of the fictional story.
It's kind of what writers in general do anyway. We channel our own ideas into our work.
And the same goes with The Wind Rises. It's also it is a biographical film of a real person, but it's also two different people kind of meshed into one as well.
What are you thinking, Aldo?
I was going to say, a lot of the way you guys are describing this movie, it reminds me of this really old movie. I doubt you guys may have even seen it. It's called The Glenn Miller Story. It was a biopic on Glenn Miller, who was a big swing and big band composer back in his day, like 20s and 30s, and he died. And the movie overall seems like this, where he kind of went out to do things. It seems like it was a pretty upbeat, positive thing. And for the most part, he doesn't have like a real enemy. It doesn't seem like there's any real villain.
No real enemy.
And it's kind of like the real villain is life itself, and just kind of going through that.
Pretty
thing.
much. I mean, the enemy that the kind of maybe I'm wrong about this. Alex and Romney can correct me, but the real enemy that gets brought up in this movie is war itself, basically, because all of these aeronautical engineers. They show 3 historical engineers. And all of them kind of have the same things to say. We didn't want these planes built for war. We wanted to just build them.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what happens there, because the biggest overlying theme is we can't wait for the war to end, because then we can make our outlandish designs, and then we can make these really big or really. What I'm trying to think. What do you remember? What Jiro's theme was, Alex? He just wanted to make something that could fly really fast.
He just wanted to make something beautiful.
Beautiful,
he just wanted to make a beautiful plane.
Well, the whole 10, every artist has 10 years in the sun was kind of the underlying theme of the whole thing. And at the very end of the film, where Caproni's asking him, "How did you spend your 10 years?"
Yes, but there is one other thing I want to get into, and yes, it's kind of silly, but it's a Ghibli film, and Ghibli films have Ghibli-isms. And it was actually kind of funny. Me and Alex when we went and saw The Wind Rises, we were alone in the theater. We were the only ones there. And so we were kind of loud. We were kind of loud. And so we were just kind of laughing at some of the major things. Like, for example, one of the biggest Ghibli-isms that a lot of people know is if there is a lead female character, her hair at some point will come alive. And will take on a life of its own. And I actually found it funny that in this one, there wasn't really a girl that happened to. It was a guy.
Well, he's did that with guys before. I mean, if you look at Princess Mononoke, he does the hair kind of.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. But yeah, we were joking like for most of the time about Jiro's boss because every time he was walking around, it was just flap, 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 flap. He had like he literally had like this Mandark haircut. And so it's like flap, 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 flap.
Yeah.
Jiro, you need to be working on the plane. Flap, flap, flap.
I think it was Martin Short who did the voice of that character.
Was that Martin Short?
Yeah, it was Martin Short.
Okay.
We were wondering who it was.
They had like a full A-lister cast of voices.
Yeah,
they did.
I'm surprised that you guys can like name all the Ghibli directors and stuff by like memory. And it's like Martin Short. That's the movie you just went
Martin
to.
Short, William H. Macy, Stanley Tucci, Werner Herzog was one of the voices.
Yeah, we were actually just trying to figure out who Martin played because we saw him in the list. We were just like, who did Martin Short play? We didn't hear him. And yeah, it would make sense that he played the boss because man, that role like fits for him. But overall, unfortunately, we have run out of time for the Geek News reviews and opinions. So overall, let's just kind of give our scores of The Wind Rises. I would give it totally an 8 or 9 out of 10. You can go ahead and go out of 5 if you want to.
On my scale's on a 5 scale, and if any of you who've seen my review on youtube.com/studiophantasma, I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I did point out some of the criticisms, but I explained that I couldn't tell if it was something that Disney did to it or if that was part of the original film itself, because dubbing is kind of weird like that.
Alex, the Shadow Blazer, what did you think?
I give it a perfect 10 because this movie really made me feel something that not a lot of the other Ghibli films have made me feel, and I did legitimately cry a little bit.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I'm sorry, but I have to make the joke. This movie made me feel things!
It made me feel things.
And hopefully I believe we have convinced Aldo to...
I give this a potential 4 out of 5.
Okay, all right, all right. It's potential.
We'll hold you to it once you finally see it.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so like I said, it is the end of Geek News Reviews and Opinions. There are ways to get a hold of us if you guys want to. First of all, why don't you go ahead and start off, Aldo?
You can find me on Twitter, Aldo531. It's all one word. You can also find me on YouTube. It's youtube.com/animeoverdubes.
All right. And then, Romney, how can they get a hold of you?
All right. You can find me, and I know the channel names are confusing because YouTube has not changed the URL, nor will they ever to. But
actually, when I subscribed to you, it did come up as Studio Ghost.
Well, yeah,
so.
but
the URL.
The URL is different. So anyway, you can find me on youtube.com/studiophantasma. And if you need an easier way to find it, just type in Romney's Reviews. And you can also find my articles at globeslcc.com.
Same thing for Aldo. And then, Alex, where can people find your stuff at?
Okay, I am on youtube.com/shadowblazer3000. I'm also on Twitter under my actual name, Alex J. Short. And that's if you want to talk to me. Come talk to me, people.
And then for me, guys, you can reach me on Twitter, and that is twitter.com/Drak, DRAK2326. Once again, that's DRAK2326. You can also see my work on YouTube under the same name. You could also see me and Alex come together for Let's Plays, vlogs, reviews, things like that at youtube.com/DrakAndShadow. Who knows? Maybe we'll have to try and work out a Romney or Aldo appearance. I'd have to work that out. And then also, if you guys have any suggestions or stuff that you guys would like to hear us talk about on Geek News Reviews and Opinions, you can go to geekyweek@gmail.com. Once again, that is geekyweek@gmail.com. And guys, it's been a pleasure this week. Thank you all three of you for coming in to talk about The Wind Rises as well as the various other topics. I wish I had something big announced for next week, but unfortunately for us as college students, it is spring break. So we are going to be taking that week off, and then the following week we will come back in with yet more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. We'll see you next week, guys.